And welcome to Inappropriate Characters.
Hello. Can everyone hear us out there? I don't know. I'm not seeing the chat, so I can't tell if someone's responding or not. Anyways, I'm going to assume people can hear me. This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss and internet shitlords. And as usual, I'm joined here by Job and Venger. And today we're going to be talking about a number of related topics of, kind of a this week in stupid, if assuming Sargon isn't gonna sue us for that, of stuff going on in the SJW world relating to the RPG hobby. Anyway, before we start, we're gonna allow Venger to pimp his latest product, which has just come out. So take it away, Venger.
All right, thank you. So, Chult Fuchsia Malaise has finally come out on PDF. You can get that at DriveThruRPG. Trying to hit the drive-through under $5 billboard, like get on the main page on the site. So I've got it ridiculously priced at $4.99, just under $5. It's 225 pages. It's full color. It's a lot like original Chult. It's a little bit different and updated, and whole new material. Obviously, new dungeons, new city stuff, new random tables, all that jazz. And to try to pimp it, I've started a new hashtag, which is Fuchsia Lives Matter. And
That ought to go over really well.
And then if you post like a fuchsia square on your social media, that will just like make it 10 times better. And also, if you want to support our channel and our bi-weekly videos, visit our Patreon, and just donating like a couple bucks regularly, monthly. I don't know if it's a monthly thing or something, but that would help us out. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to stay up past 8:30 someday. So
let's hope. Well, that sounds like a really good deal for the size of that book. Very impressive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
This is a limited time price, right? Like it's not.
It is. The PDF hasn't like completely been optimized yet. Like it doesn't currently have bookmarks and hyperlinks, and I'm still searching through and getting every last typo and layout glitch fixed. Sometime late this coming week, all those things should be updated and fixed and ready to go. And at that time, I'll probably price it at least $10, maybe 12, maybe 15, something more in line with the value of what you're getting. Because, yeah, 225 pages. It's a beast of a book. It's got loads and loads of awesomeness. Like I said, if you love Chult, you'll love this, possibly even more. So, yeah.
Awesome. I've got a really spotty connection, I think, guys. I don't know what's going on over here, but I'm assuming you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit more than normal.
Anything?
But
am I even connected?
Yeah, you're here. Can you?
I don't know what it is.
Is it possible for you to disable our video in Zoom?
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah, if you do that, you'll save yourself some bandwidth, and if you stop all your porn,
I don't know how to do that.
Torrents, that'll probably help.
Yeah, log out of Pornhub, for God's sakes. Come on.
That could help, couldn't it?
Yeah, I make my wife stop watching movies while I'm doing this, just in case it impacts the stream bandwidth.
So in the meantime, we should probably talk about what we're going to talk about this episode.
Yeah, we got a few topics. So we're going to go over, what was it? The article in the Washington Post from last week about D&D and the pandemic, racial justice. I don't know what they call it. Turning point or something. I don't remember. The article was a mess, but I guess we'll save our thoughts for then. Then we also got oh god, what else?
I think we were going to start with the Curse of Strahd, weren't we?
Yes, the revamped. Do you guys want to go into that now, or do you want to bullshit some more?
No, let's just dive into it.
Yeah, let's go for it. I think I'm now that I've turned off your videos, I think it might be working better.
Okay.
Oh, someone posted, OSR Fanatic posted in the comments, you guys talking Ennies tonight. I will not, because I just think that the Ennies are lame. And they don't prove or recognize anything. I mean, I know a couple of good people have won, like Lynn Seal, who did the layout for, I don't know, like a dozen of my books.
Yeah.
But overall, I just think it's a crap show. And a couple of years after whoever won the gold or the silver, they have to denounce that person because they're problematic or because they're just like a complete asshole. It's just a mess. And
well, sometimes you have to denounce your own products. Barely. Kyle Chenier is any measure.
Yeah, half of them are social justice warriors, and I mean, I can't even post on N-World anymore without my post getting flagged. Like, oh, you link to something and you use the words or the phrases woke scold and social justice warrior and virtue signaling, and therefore and you can't do that. That's against forum policies. And so you can't like post in this forum anymore, or this thread is closed to you.
You know, just you can talk about Nazis, punching Nazis and fascists and everything else.
And Gen Con is when they're not asking Anita Sarkeesian to guest host Gen Con, they're banning Jeremy Hambley for getting his ass beat in a bar, during the convention or off hours. But that's just so much bullshit. I'm not going to entertain any of that. So I'm not going to be discussing Ennies at any time. I didn't even put my stuff up for review or the awards because I don't even want that kind of negative attention, and I don't even want to bother with those people. Fuck them.
Well spoken.
Yeah, the Ennies have been a joke for like the last 10 years or more, right?
Yeah.
And they really aren't in any way very reflective. They're rather just reflective of a kind of whoever can get up the most people to go vote for them. Plus, it has to get past a group of judges that are often questionable, and there have been numerous scandals about that too, right? But Aaron the Pedantic was pointing out in the live chat that, as if, this is the nail on the coffin of the Ennies, that the RPG safety toolkit, the one that I think we talked about it on here earlier, if it wasn't in one of my videos or if we talked about it here, but it's, the one that has all kinds of ridiculous recommendations about what you must do to have a safe RPG session. It won best free product this year. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, that was that one I sent you guys. Oh man, that was horrible.
Whew.
All right. Well, yeah, let's dive into the topic that we are going to talk about.
So anyways,
wait, I got one more.
The Curse of Strahd has just had a Okay, go ahead.
I got one thing to pimp, and that's my teeth. I'm going to give you guys a smile. This is my last time I can smile without a gold tooth. All right. I'm getting a gold tooth this week. My first gold tooth. So,
hence large.
I've been growing this pirate beard, so I figured I might as well get a pirate tooth too.
You need the one gold hoop earring too.
Oh yeah.
And the eye patch. It's a whole look.
All right, here we go. So we got our first topic here.
All right. So the Curse of Strahd, it was obviously a remake of, with a lot of creative license of the old Ravenloft module, which was a very popular AD&D module. And it was obviously redone with changing a lot of the material already. But now they have the Wizards has announced that they've done a new version of Curse of Strahd, and the alleged reason for this of Curse of Strahd revamped, I believe they're calling it, was to focus more on diversity and inclusion and to correct what they saw as some problematic material that was in Curse of Strahd. Now, Curse of Strahd came out, like 2-3 years ago at the most?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so apparently now, that which was a perfectly fine module at that time is now already something that needed to be rewritten. History needed to be rewritten for it because it's already, by the new standards of just the last 36 months, is now considered to be, right-wing propaganda or something.
Right, yeah. Back in the old problematic days of 2017 when you could write modules that featured police officers in them.
Yeah. Well, apparently the two things that they've pointed out specifically as changing is, one is that they've removed some of the material on the Vistani, who are, obviously inspired by the Romani people, the Gypsies, and are trying to make them, different, less stereotypical, I guess. And then the other part is that apparently there's some NPC in that book that it's a character that she has a prosthetic leg from an injury, and they noted in the original version that she would try to feign not having it for what you would think would be obvious reasons if you're an adventurer, because if you're fighting someone and they can tell that you have a prosthetic leg, then that's a very quick way to kind of take you out in combat, right? Or at least to make it
prey
very,
on
very
someone's
difficult.
weakness.
That's
Even
right.
if you're just a hot bar wench or tavern wench, you don't want to go flaunting your wooden leg.
But I don't think she was a tavern. I think she was like some kind of
the guys
vampire
that you're looking for to hit on you and buy you a drink or take you upstairs. And also the whole thing with the gypsies, I mean, isn't everybody being too overly sensitive about that? I mean, what parent over 40 doesn't occasionally tell their children, if you don't start behaving, I am going to sell you to the gypsies next time they're in town?
I think that might just have been that might just be you, Venture. I'm not too sure about that.
I was watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because I hadn't seen the show in like many years. So I'm watching it back from season 1. And they're talking about trannies and gypsies and, everything un-PC. And it just reminded me of, back in the 2005, 2006, 2008, the good times before the whole woke leftist social justice warrior, everybody takes offense at everything brigade. I don't know. I want those times to come back. I don't want to live in this time that we have to walk on eggshells and not, I don't know.
There's an easy solution for that, right, Venger?
What's that?
Well, look,
there's an easy solution for that, right?
Just don't care about what people say.
No, take yourself out. That's the easy. You don't want to live in a time of a PC, then.
Oh. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I would rather fight to change things back to the way they were, to make America great again, rather than just
Yeah, but you see, okay, here's the thing, right? I totally, the Vistani are much more clearly based on a specific real life cultural group than most RPG setting peoples are, right? Like it's not the same as to say, oh, well, there's some kind of land in some fantasy world that has, obviously dark-skinned people and they're, tribesmen or something like that, and to suggest that this is somehow a commentary on some specific African culture, because it's not, right? It's kind of generic Africa land or what have you. But when you're talking about the Vistani, everybody who looks at them right away, you can, okay, those are meant to be gypsies, right? Now they're not meant to be the real Romany culture, because it's a Gothic story that's being told. And so it's based on the Gothic element of how gypsies were portrayed in those sorts of stories. But I could theoretically see a reasonable person arguing that this is a particular case of, where if you were a Romany person, you could feel offended by it. Sure. Now, I think the much more stupid thing that you see in the new Curse of Strahd revamped is the character with the fake leg, right? Because the whole reason that they now have to say, oh no, she doesn't hide it at all, she proudly shows off her prosthetic leg, is because of this idiotic notion of the idea of ableism or something like that, where it used to be that you said, well, don't make fun of people who have disabilities, and that's perfectly reasonable, right? To say we shouldn't make fun of people who have disabilities. But this wasn't making fun. This was something that was completely within the rational realm of, if you're an adventurer, if you're going and getting into melee combat with people, it's a good idea for them not to know that you have a weak spot. But the new woke culture insists on demanding that theoretically someone who is disabled is exactly as good at doing anything as someone who isn't disabled, right? Like what they want to say, and you've seen the SJWs doing this in other parts of RPGs where, for example, they say, well, if you've lost a limb, that shouldn't give you any penalties at all, right? It's because they want to create this fantasy that somehow if you are physically disabled in some way, that shouldn't actually affect you in any way, because it otherwise you're somehow being unjust, right? And that's just ridiculous. That's a literal denial of reality, right? Like if I lose an eye, it'll affect my ability to to see correctly, and it should cause penalties, right? It's not about making fun of a person that's lost an eye. It's just a physiological fact, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's great. But this isn't even the really kind of naughty part about all this, right? It's that very clearly, because it came out so quickly, like they're coming out with the new Curse of Strahd revamped, and it's in a deluxe special edition that's got like its own little box, and it's really fancy, and it's going to cost $99.99, right? It's coming out on October 20th. I've seen pictures of it because some of the Wizards people have shown what it looks like, and it looks very fancy. But it's very clear because, if you understand how Wizards work, they don't.
Oops. Can't hear you now, Pundit. Just repeat the last thing about Wizards.
Still can't hear you.
He might have got disconnected. He'll reconnect in a second.
They were always going to release this product. They were probably planning it a year ago or more. So they're only claiming now that they're doing this for social justice reasons, but it's actually just a marketing campaign. They realized that using this will let them sell way more of these fancy box sets.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that too when I saw what was all in the box. It kind of reminded me of like Goodman Games, how they like put a foil cover, and then a alternate cover, and then a drawing cover on the same thing to get like suckers to buy 4 copies of this thing they already own. So yeah, exactly. now they've one-upped it. So I don't know.
Maybe I hope it's a financial disaster for them.
This whole thing is an utterly cheap marketing ploy, right? Like they're just doing this.
You're racist if you don't get the revamped version.
If this actually does well for Wizards and they keep going with it, then the silver lining is, I think eventually enough people are going to get tired of that bullshit, and they're going to go to other OSR sources, other role-playing games that's like D&D but not actually D&D. The stuff that we put out, and then hopefully, we get a little more action that we siphon off from Wizards of the Coast, because they're all being get woke, go broke. Or even if they don't go broke, even if they do well, it's going to divide a lot of the fandom, and a lot of people are going to split off from that, and then then we get that, which is nice.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly that's going to happen. I think it is happening right now. I mean, guys, but I've been having banner months lately in terms of my sales.
Yes, me too.
Anyone in the chat room got a comment on the?
It just seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a joke. Yeah, I don't really see anything in the chat room on this one.
Should we go to the next topic?
Well, hang on, because I wanted to add another part of this, which is on the RPG site, somebody posted this. MSN ended up doing an article about this reprint of Curse of Strahd.
Oh,
and of course, MSN. Sorry,
I didn't see that one. What did it say?
Well, here I'll explain to you guys. I only found this today, so I didn't have time to share it with you. But you know how MSN and all of the media companies are completely infiltrated by the SJW gang, and it was very interesting because, of course, it details all the stuff in it and how they're changing it. But then the conclusion that they get to is that they say it's actually probably not enough. They say in the thing, it says, for one thing, revisions aren't as extensive as they could be. It's true that they remove some of the stereotypes of the Vistani people as uncivilized, but the module still gives the Vistani's ability to curse or hypnotize players or cast spells like the Evil Eye, and the art still conjures stereotyped imagery of the Romani. Leading to suggest that Romani have mystical, dangerous powers, tropes that have been used in the past to target Romani for persecution. So they're like still saying, it's they're saying, while Wizards of the Coast is clearly making strides, recently pledging to hire and publish more diversely, and specifically hiring a Romani consultant to work on some of its releases, it'll take more than just a handful of granular changes to fully expunge the offensive undercurrents of the setting.
It's never enough, as we know.
No, exactly. It's never, and Wizards is not going to get this until they're run into the ground. It's very obvious at this point that Wizards will keep apologizing, keep doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down, but it'll never, ever be enough, right?
And half the people that are whining about it don't even play D&D.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the stuff that I think galls all of us.
Well, I wonder if WotC is going to put the disclaimer that they've been putting on the old TSR products on the other version of the Curse of Strahd now.
Yeah, but
do that, or they're going to pat themselves on the back, and then 2 years from now they're going to be like, we got to come out with a new edition because we didn't do enough back then.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
The new edition will be, $200.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's a made-up game, guys. Jesus Christ. It's just
David Thompson in the chat makes a very interesting point, which I have to say, as someone who's run Ravenloft a couple of times, I think is completely accurate. He says, I'd love to see groups play Strahd as a horror setting instead of it always turning into Three Stooges meet Dracula D&D. Because I know from my parties, both times I ran Ravenloft, that was totally how it ended up, right?
Yeah, like, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein and Dracula. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just in execution, although the game is always set up to be super serious, in execution, Ravenloft, at least, I mean, I've never run Curse of Strahd, but Ravenloft always turns out to seem way more like some kind of goofball weird adventure than to be something that's actually scary in any way,
Well, that's why you and I run Gonzo games, is because, at least for me, I would rather lean into it and like run headlong into that direction if I know it's going to go there. If I know it's going to be more like Monty Python than Game of Thrones, I'm just going to go in that direction from the get-go. I'm not going to pretend that this is like some big historical high arts epic quest, Lord of the Rings style. And then 2.5 sessions in, it's like, and the bard is like
part of the
trying to light his
problem
forts
is
on fire and cast magic missile into the darkness, and it's just silly.
Yeah, also, just to interject real quick, we just got a new subscriber, Ryan Lynn. So I just want to welcome Ryan Lynn to the gang.
Sweet.
Thanks for subscribing.
The thing goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. There's the thing. Excellent. Welcome aboard. I was going to say that it's probably part of the problem with why Ravenloft always turns out to be like Three Stooges meet Dracula is the setup of D&D in its standard format, and this, I guess it applied in first edition, and it'll apply even more in fifth edition, right? The way that the kind of power levels that characters have, right? Because part of the thing in Dracula, in the novel Dracula, is that you have guys that are just, they're very human. There's not guys that can cast fireball in it, right? And so it's a very uneven fight against a really terrible enemy. Whereas in D&D first edition, never mind fifth edition, you've got, all this kind of very showy magic and magic items and things like that, which really don't help create that right kind of atmosphere, And in terms of what you were saying, Benjer, yeah, when I want Gonzo, I run Gonzo, right? Like I do my DCC campaign, and it's totally Gonzo. There's never going to be a serious, an attempt at a serious Gothic adventure in it or something like that. But then on the other hand, you can also modify, part of the genius of the OSR is that you can modify an OSR game in such a way that it can make that kind of thing more effective. Like even in my Lion and Dragon game, which everybody watching should purchase, obviously, Lion and Dragon Medieval Authentic Role Playing. You can, when you take out the fancy magic and replace it with the much more medieval authentic magic that is not as immediate combat ready, and that it's not that kind of intensity, and where player characters can be more vulnerable, because in Lion and Dragon the combat system is a bit more brutal. It's more of the kind of like it's not even Lord of the Rings, it's more like Game of Thrones or something like that. Then you can have an adventure that has a lot of tension. Like just literally the day before yesterday, in my Lion and Dragon game, I had a group going to check out some weird stuff that was going on in a forest, and the whole thing involved this chaos creature that had been released when there was a natural disaster. The only monster that was really there was this one creature, right? But it had also the effect of the natural disaster. It covered the whole area in a fog, so the characters couldn't see well. And this creature was quite dangerous as a creature, and it was hunting them. They started hunting it, but then it started hunting them. And it created a really, my players were pretty freaked out about it for, 3/4 of the adventure. Like it was a really serious thing. So they also didn't know what they were getting into at first. They thought it could be some kind of powerful undead or something else, right? And it really worked, but it worked because the mechanics allow it to work. I just think right from the beginning, and that's obvious in the old Ravenloft module, D&D as it's set up with its power level of the default power level of D&D is not all that good for running that sort of stuff, but you can change D&D to be that good if you do it with a good OSR mod. Any comments?
Yeah, as long as you amp up the damage for 5e, then probably do it.
I mean, you can do it as a one shot or like a short campaign. I could see maintaining that level of desperateness or gothic horror or investigation. But anything after 5 or 6 sessions, unless you have great players and very few of them, like 2 or 3, I can't see it doing anything but devolving into the Three Stooges or Abbott and Costello or something like that.
Farce.
Monty Python.
Yeah.
But
in the comments, Brandon Bauber says Ravenloft / Curse of Strahd can't be scary when your 5e characters have 50 plus hit points and coming from a mentality that every encounter is balanced to CR. And that's a very good
exactly.
point. In my own channel, which everyone here should subscribe to, the RPG Pundit channel, I just did a video about a tweet that this woman made, where she was totally upset that after 2 years of GMing, someone in her campaign, a character in her campaign, died in an encounter, right? And it was like literally the first time as a GM that a player character died after 2 years, a 2-year-long campaign, right? And that to me summarizes pretty much everything wrong with D&D 5th edition.
knock, knock. Who's there? You're playing D&D wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Anyway, I guess we should move on to the next topic.
Yes, we should. So which one are we doing next?
The Washington Post article. It's on a similar vein because just like the MSN article we were just talking about, it's talking about how, during the pandemic, D&D is fighting its own battle against prejudice or something like that, right? It is
right.
It's just a ridiculous article where they're talking about how there has been, demands under the, after in conjunction with the BLM movement, that D&D has to change its ways and become more diverse and change its settings and change its rules so that it reflects a more progressive view of our society.
Yeah, it was a really weird article. I read it like 3 times, and it's, they start out like talking about this woman that's like ran D&D games on AOL or Prodigy or something. I don't remember what it was, and then they just kind of go through all these different ideas, and the article is, as far as I can tell, is like about nothing other than like don't play D&D, really. Yeah, I don't know. What was your impression, Venger?
What's that?
What was your impression?
Yeah, it's just leftists are starting to take over D&D, just like they ruined comic books and Star Wars, and D&D's next. So look out below.
I feel like D&D went first, before the Comicsgate thing. Is like all the same kind of crap came to gaming, to tabletop gaming, and everyone just rolled over. All the nerds are just like, oh, okay, I don't want to be a racist. I'll do whatever you say.
Yeah, there's a lot of rolling over, especially.
Like there's no pushback. I mean,
pretty much all nerd hobbies, where you're not lifting weights or like polishing your rifle and going out to the range. This hobby, like all of that stuff, is just full of soy bitches and just weak-willed, spineless cretins that just won't stand up for themselves or their principles or their hobby. They'll just be like, yeah, I guess I have been racist the whole time, even though I actually haven't. They'll just drink the Kool-Aid and go along with the crowd until they get swallowed up and burned and canceled. And then what are you going to do?
Well, I would say Job is right, by the way, that you got to remember, before Comicsgate, there was Gamergate, right? But a few months before Gamergate, there was Consultantgate, right? Which is really where the SJW thing, where the first serious, SJW campaign against D&D happened, right? Which was when 5th edition came out, and a bunch of these guys who obviously didn't want 5th edition to happen in the first place, because they were all 4th edition people and they hated D&D, tried to sink D&D at its very beginning, 5th edition at its very beginning, by claiming that D&D was obviously a hate crime now because people like me were involved in creating it. So it's been going on since at least then.
Well, that all came out of the story gaming faction.
That's right.
of the hobby.
Yeah, it's all
And
the
that's
same
why they
guy.
hated you, because every other time you posted something on G Plus or wherever or your forum, you'd be like, those swine story gamers and Forge people, and you really gave it to them. I mean, you stuck it to them good, and that's why they hated you, and that's why they wanted to come after you when they found like any half a reason to find fault with you or D&D. They just like attacked.
Absolutely. And I pointed out many times that after the Forge failed and after story gaming was clearly not going anywhere as a movement, all these people, all they did is they changed tactics. It's all, most of them are the same people who now just realized, okay, we're not going to convince people by saying you shouldn't play D&D because you should play story games instead. They're going to try to convince people by saying you shouldn't play D&D because it's racist or sexist or homophobic, right?
Right, yeah. Just ruin D&D for everybody, and then they're going to have to go somewhere else.
Or it's too much fun, and you shouldn't play games to have fun. You should play them to like better the world or become a more empathetic person. Or D&D causes brain damage. I mean, that's a literal thing that Ron Edwards said at one point on the Forge. And remember, because a lot of you probably don't know, but back in like 2004, I was actually a member of the Forge forum. And I was actually like posting every once in a while and talking to these guys. If you ever need a reason for why the Forge was terrible, they convinced me to write and self-publish Empire of Satanas, which is the most god-awful role-playing game, A, that ever existed, and B, that I've written. So if you want to read something that's along the lines of Fatal, but not that gross, Empire of Satanas is truly terrible. You can still find it online. Yeah, they convinced me that like, this is good. You should run
stinkers.
And so I did, and I like to think of it as sort of like my Andy Kaufman period, where subconsciously I was trying to write the worst thing ever, and then I succeeded beyond all expectations.
Well, that's a brave admission on your part.
Thank you. Well, hey, this is the truth tree, and I'm in the safety nest. And
what were you trying to do when you wrote how to game master like a fucking boss? What were you?
Exactly. If I want to talk about
what were you thinking then?
What were you on?
I'm allowed to do that because this is old school, bitch.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
if anyone got that reference, comment or chat or whatever. Yeah, comment below if you got that reference.
Yeah, there's some comments here. Brandon Bober. Why don't these leftist SJWs write their own rule systems like RPG Pundit or all the other OSR creators instead of begging wizards to make a game they want? Because it won't sell, they don't play.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's a bunch of them out there too. Just go to itch.io and you can find a bunch of them. They're just nobody wants to play them.
Yeah, they're all trash. And they know that. They know they're never going to get it by making their own stuff. So instead they have to infiltrate the mainstream, same as they've done with comics and with movies. And, they have to use established material and then wreck it rather than making their own stuff, right?
Yeah.
So regarding this article in the Washington Post, it's very...
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry?
So I was just reading Bober. I mispronounced the guy's name. Corrected me. Chat room.
There we go. It's very interesting that again in the article, it was totally set up to say, first of all, Wizards of the Coast has this problem, and they're trying to do something about it. And then we're going to interview all these people who are saying what they're trying to do actually isn't enough. And then at the end, they have a bunch of people saying, well, people shouldn't play D&D anyways. You should play other games. Like they recommend some of these other games, right? Like one of them is about like this story game about trying to create a queer community in a post-apocalypse setting, right? and and another one is about playing people in a little Russian Jewish village, you know. Like it's just ridiculous, right? Like so again, it proves that nothing that Wizards does ever is going to be enough for them, because their goal isn't to fix it. It's to see, you know, D&D stop existing. That's what they want.
Yeah, I checked out the author too. Like, I checked out his Twitter feed and stuff, and it looks like he's been a New York Times like travel writer for a long time, and then I don't know. I guess he drew the short straw and had to write a D&D article, probably paid for by Wizards or something. I don't know. It wasn't actually very glowing about them, so maybe they didn't pay for that one.
Yeah, I don't think it was paid for by Wizards. I think more likely he's got some friends who are D&D SJWs and wanted to get that representation in the Washington Post, right? But it just proves over and over again. I mean, someday somebody in the upper echelons of Hasbro will figure it out, but it'll probably be too late by then. They're going to realize that there's no way to win in this game, and the attempt to make money off of wokeness that they're currently doing with stuff like Curse of Strahd,
just like war games and
is going to backfire horribly on them in terms of
warfare. Like, the best option is to not play.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's see. Is there anything else in the chat room?
Someone said, I nominate Venger to write the most brutal, trope-filled game world ever devised. Do a game on the Moor invasion of Spain. I was thinking maybe Communist Propaganda, the role-playing game. And the game makes it seem like, oh, communism is awesome. But the more you play it, the more you realize, oh, this is fucking terrible. This is a nightmare. You know, you look at the wrong guy the wrong way, and he takes your grain, and he sells your children, and he imprisons you, and eventually, you know, tortures you to death into gulag. You know, that's communism. People don't realize that because, you know, they live here in America for the most part. And a lot of people are dumb. But yeah, communism is fucking terrible. And if the leftists get what they want, America is shit out of luck. And if America goes, you know, I don't know if Europe can hold the line. I think it's all going to go.
Well, Western Europe definitely can't.
Right.
Once again, Poland will have to save civilization.
That can only come from your mouth, pundit.
Well, they did it once before. They'll just get the winged hussars up again, and here we go.
Yeah.
But no, you could do a version of Paranoia that was more that was, you know, instead of being a riff on sort of Cold War paranoia, you know, you could do Paranoia East German version, you know, something like that.
Yeah. I've used Paranoia like that, where, you know, you're basically in some sort of, you know, Marxist utopia underground with this giant, all-knowing, all-seeing computer, and you know, it is a nightmare scenario, and that's actually a good way to play Paranoia. And especially if you don't want to do it as slapstick and silly and wink wink nudge nudge, you know, if you want to play Paranoia more in a serious dark way, you can definitely go the, you know, communist Marxist utopia thing, and it'll get there. You know, it'll be weirdly scary and probably like Black Mirror meets, I don't know.
Michael McLaughlin in the Gloflin, I don't know how to say it, in the chat room said, another news that Dungeon World co-creator Adam Coble was officially canceled this week I didn't hear about this one. He was forced to resign from I don't know what their game company's called. I don't remember. That one was Sage Latora.
Didn't that happen like 3 or 4 months ago? That whole thing with.
I think he's saying that that he was forced to leave the company now.
Wow.
That's funny. Actually, you know, Adam Coble play tested. Let's see, the one who watches from below, the DCC adventure. So I actually named one of the monsters in the one who watches from below, the Coble, which is just a bloated sack of flesh that floats in like pond scum.
Oh, that's great.
So, and there's some art of it too. So, actually, let me see if I can grab it real quick. Keep talking.
Well, while you're looking for that, Pedro Garcia has already asked this question twice, so I guess I should answer it. He says, RPG Pundit, was this too brutal? I had my player fight a level 14 wizard who attacked him with inanimate objects. It was 10 daggers, each tipped in wyvern poison that did 76 damage each. Well, no, I guess it's not too brutal, but the part of the problem with D&D mechanics is that you, as a DM, after a certain point in standard D&D, you kind of have to come up with crazy stuff like that for it to really be a significant threat, right? Like, one of the things I do in Lion and Dragon is that the way that the critical system works, if you're a mid-level warrior in Lion and Dragon, you're absolutely badass. You're really, really tough, right? Like, you can take on a bunch of enemies. But if one of them gets lucky with a critical, you can die, right? So it's the scenario that, you know, you could be, I don't know, Jaime Lannister pre-hand loss, you know, and be the best swordsman around. But there's always a chance that the character could just get an unlucky hit from some spearman, you know, and then that'll be it. From some first level guy, it can happen. So this is, you know, I think a much better way to do it for most types of genres, because of course D&D is really good mechanically at the genre it's meant to be, which is like the classic concept of this D&D sort of not quite high fantasy, but this very cinematic sort of fantasy. And there, you know, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Raving Bean points out, once again, supporting my argument about how Eastern Europe could save the West. You know, Romania has banned gender studies courses on the very same day that Wizards of the Coast spoke out against diversity. Yeah. So, you know, it's the Visegrad countries, the Slavic countries of Europe. They're the ones that are still unashamedly pro-European, and you know why that is, right? They're pro-Western. They're in favor of civilization. It's because these countries spent 50 years under communism. So no one is going to convince them that communism is a really great idea, or that the West is somehow worse than other cultures. You know, like, they know exactly what they had to fight for.
All right, I found the kobold, this bloated sack of flesh. Let's see if I can get this to focus. There we go. Get your video. Oops. That's the kobold.
Dracopol says, Adam Coble right now, squatting on a sidewalk, tin can, with a sign saying, "We'll talk about my privilege for food."
Oh my God. All right, that was a pretty good one. You guys want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah. Did you show the Coble?
I did. Yeah, you'll see it in a minute on the
Okay.
thing.
Oh yeah, I see it now. Fantastic. Anyway, our last topic of the night is not exactly RPG related, but it's you know, RPG adjacent. You know, in that most of us who play RPGs are fans of sci-fi and fantasy. And the Hugo Awards happened just a couple of days ago. And you know, people obviously know from the last few years that the Hugo Awards have become very political and politicized, and there's a lot of SJW pressure on the Hugo Awards. And the interesting thing is, this year, the big scandal happened on account of some it's really almost a gimmick that the Hugos have been doing the last few years, which is something they call the retro Hugos, which is that they give awards to it for certain years each year for the years before the Hugos actually existed, to recognize outstanding sci-fi and fantasy stuff from years of yore, years gone by. And this year it was the 1945 Retro Hugos, and the SJWs went absolutely nuts over the fact that that two of the winners of those Retro Hugos were stuff they don't like anymore. One of them was the Cthulhu mythos, which won the, I think, best genre or something like that. And then best editor was Joseph W. Campbell, who is, of course, historically the most famous editor of maybe in the history of science fiction, right? He was the guy that he was a magazine editor. I think it was Astounding Stories, was it called? That was, right, the magazine where a whole bunch of the greats of science fiction got their very start. And
right. And he was the editor for like 40 years or something.
Yeah. And his selections basically defined the genre of sci-fi from that point until, well, at least until the second wave of science fiction, but you could argue even including the second wave of science fiction.
Didn't he write Who Goes There? Which is what The Thing is based on. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know for sure.
John Carpenter's The Thing is based on The Thing, the 50s movie. Never seen the original?
Well, yeah, but that was based on...
Yeah. On a short story.
It's either a short story or novella or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was mostly famous for having found and published the works of, a ton of these super huge science fiction writers. So, anyways, the SJWs have basically attacked the Hugos now as being, problematic because they're giving awards to these guys from 1945 rather than, I don't know, unknown female writers or writers of color from 1945 that did short stories no one ever heard of, or from some genre that no one ever reads, right? Like it's pretty obvious that if you're looking at that era, two of the biggest things that happened in sci-fi, you just, again, rationally speaking, right? The Cthulhu mythos, whatever you think of the people that wrote it, has been hugely influential, right? And Campbell was hugely influential as an editor. Right. So, how are you going to question that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they question it by just besmirching his, reputation or whatever what his ideas were. I mean, I read a little bit about it. It seems like they probably have a point. I mean, the guy seems like more openly racist than Lovecraft is, as far as I can tell. But I mean, whatever. You go back and judge every single person by modern day. I don't know.
Standards?
Range morality, or even every D&D book from 2 years ago, then you're just going to be upset with everything for the rest of time.
Judd Goswick just said to Avenger that you're right. Campbell wrote Who Goes There, which was the inspiration for The Thing. Yeah. Nice. However, what's really funny about this with regards to John Campbell is that if you look at the pulp rev movement, which is the very, very conservative movement in pulp, kind of like the OSR of pulp stories and fiction, which has some very, very conservative people in it who basically think that anything that came out after the 40s was leftist garbage in their eyes, right? Like, these are people that think that, Isaac Asimov and Heinlein were like some of the worst things that could have happened to, like they were raging communists or something like that, right? And that they were the worst thing that could have happened to science fiction, and that all science fiction went downhill after that, right? They hate Campbell because of that, right? Like, Campbell was the guy who discovered these guys, and and from their point of view, the problem was that Campbell enabled a whole bunch of this very other kind of pseudo-intellectual sci-fi that opened the way for the left, you know? So like, poor Campbell is getting it from both ends here, right? Like if you ask Pulp Rev, he's a goddamn commie red, you know? And if you ask the SJWs, you know, he was a Nazi, right? So it's just unbelievable. It's yeah, I don't know what more to say about that, but it's.
What do you guys think it's going to be like in 10 years? Like, do you think it's going to kind of stay as it is, between like, I don't know, the right and the left and the woke and the traditionalists or conservatives? Or do you think that it's going to go further, slide down into leftism and all that? Or is it, we kind of got to sort of go back to normal and just realize that this point in time was when the pendulum just swung too far in that direction, and then everybody's just like, oh, that was such a fucking mistake. Like, you know, what were we thinking?
I don't know. Personally, I mean, I think of like the boomers, you know, the boomers were the summer love shit. And, right. But then they gave us the Reagan 80s, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And, you know, as I think you're Gen Xer too. Like as a Gen Xer, I've been like, the early part of my life was like defined by all the fucking what the boomers wanted to do. And then like the end of my life is going to be dictated by what the fucking millennials, you know, what their stupid ass ideas are. So, I'm sure that, you know, that's probably going to go further left, and then they're probably going to turn into greedheads like their parents did. And they're going to be fucking super right wing when they get old.
Maybe.
Well, you know, I think if you take a look at the level of kind of the acceleration of the SJW demands, and in things like Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all that sort of thing, it's just much too far to, it's going much too quickly to be able to last, right? So there's going to be one of two things that are going to happen. By 10 years from now, either you'll have seen a real shift of alignment where what you're going to have is, I'm not necessarily saying this is good because it could have its own problems, that the moderate center will move completely towards a side that is opposed to a smaller but politically powerful group of extremists, and that this will eventually lead to big democratic upsets in elections, things that where you're going to have basically large scale voting for Republicans, and this will there'll be a marginalization of the left in almost every area. You've seen similar things happen in other countries, right? Like this is, for example, and bringing it up again, you see this in Poland, right? Where you had, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, there was this kind of special compromise that was agreed by everyone, which was basically nobody who was involved in the communist regime would either be persecuted, prosecuted, or fired, right? So you ended up having about 20 years of the communists just kind of simmering there in every level of government and society and continuing to have an influence. They just were calling themselves, you know, democratic socialists now or whatever. And they kept moving more and more towards this area that was contrary to what the vast majority of the anti-communist Polish people felt, until the polls jumped very hardcore towards the right-wing parties, towards the PIS and parties like that, and had this landslide victory for the PIS, and they've ended up starting to say, no, we're going to push you guys out of every level of society because you were the garbage that caused everything to begin with, right? So you could see something like that happening, a post-Trumpian right that will end up, first of all, outvoting the SJWs, and then probably marginalizing them socially in very big ways. Or Tim Pool will eventually be right, because he says this every year and in every video, every week in every video. There'll be a civil war in the US. Yeah, it'll be one of the two things. Like it'll either end up being something that is resolved by a mass popular protest against the extremities of the left, or it's going to be resolved by violence. And so you better hope that it's the first one and not the second one.
Well, I'm going to buy lots of guns between now and then, just in case.
Yep. No, I mean, I would, if I was living in the States, I would totally understand that. And then, you know, I would be telling people, if you live in the States, you know, you probably want to buy guns, and you probably don't want to live in a Democrat-run city. You know?
Yeah.
I got lots of guns, but I live on an island. I'm really not that worried, even though I'm near Seattle. Even if someone got to this island, I'm so far south that no kind of conflict would ever get down here, I'm sure.
The alligators would get them before they got to you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the closest comparison to what the SJWs are doing is not the hippie movement in the 1960s. It's the Chinese Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, right?
Right.
You've got this insane mob of relatively young people who are being led by some very, very cynical old people that are trying to manipulate to cause mass chaos for their own political benefit. And
right. If they were more liberal,
never ends well.
If they were more liberal in the classical sense, like libertarian, and like, you know, people should just be able to do what they want, I mean, that'd be one thing. That'd be good. But the fact that they're so intolerant and they're so against almost everything that came before, you just can't work with these people. You can't find compromise. You can't appease them. You can't make them happy and make them go away. They're always going to be marching on your doorstep unless they're stomped out. So I don't know. On that note, I have to get going. Good show, everybody. Download and grab the PDF for Charles Fuchsia Malaise before it goes up late next week to at least $10. Get it while it's $4.99, and yeah, go to Patreon and give us a couple bucks. We'd appreciate it. And that's it. Venger signing out.
All right, Venger, take care, and remember everyone else.
Thanks. Good night, guys.
Bye, man.
Fuchsia.
If you want Venger to get to stay later, then you've got to support us on Patreon and to subscribe and hit the like button and share these videos so we get more subscribers, and then hopefully you'll be able to stay up a bit more. Some comments from the chat here. Vesuvius actually ends up saying something very similar to what I just said. He said the extreme 8%, that is in fact the number of people in the United States that are actually SJW, 8%. Will push the moderates into unity with the conservatives, and that's the chance to re-stigmatize the Maoists. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you said that before or after I said it, but it's pretty much correct. Pedro Garcia, on the other hand, says in 10 years we'll live in a based libertarian Orthodox Jewish monarchy with Chinese characteristics. I don't think that's too likely, but okay.
Oh my God, we got the best listeners.
Yeah. Profanarchy says counter-revolution has already happened in 2016. The current SJW explosion is one long hissy fit. Well, in a very strong sense, you're right, Profanarchy. I think that after Trump wins again, the SJW, I've said this before, the SJWs are going to go absolutely insane, and then they will burn out on that level of insanity, right? Like, nobody's going to. There's going to come a time where everyone's going to try to pretend that they weren't part of that movement, you know, and just like you see, like, you know, with Story Gamers and the Forge, there's a whole bunch of people that after the Forge fell apart and when the OSR started, tried to pretend that they were always on the side of the OSR, right? And like, you can look back and say, no, you were you fucker, you were one of the Forge, right? You were trying to say that D&D was a fundamentally flawed game and all this bullshit, you know. So yeah, it's I think that that's very much the sort of thing that'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I'm kind of worried about is that you know, people just have enough and then just swings too far back in the other direction, you know.
Well, that's a real worry. It could.
Yeah.
Because the problem is the SJWs have also created a culture that has strongly eroded the notion of, free speech and the idea of individual liberties. And what they don't realize is that the real danger is that this, that justification could be used by other people, right? It could be used by people on the right, in theory, who could say, no, you said it yourself, right? If we don't like your speech, we should get to silence you, right? And so that'll be used against them,
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest problem I always had with identity politics is their version of identity politics is everyone has an identity except like the majority, white population. But once the identity politics is accepted, then once that's everywhere, there's the majority group is going to do the same thing. You know what I mean? I don't see how you can just like say, okay, everyone gets this, but just not this one group. Like eventually, if that's the accepted, like how people are, you're supposed to be part of a group and that's how you're supposed to do politics, then the majority group is going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If the most obvious is that if the left made it acceptable to purge people for being conservatives from public institutions or, political positions or educational positions or things like that, then that means it's justified that if the right has the power, they should remove them from those positions too,
Yeah.
They should remove the left, from those positions.
Yeah.
So
well, that's
very,
always
very
been,
dangerous
in America, political affiliations have never been protected. Not like a legal scholar or anything, but I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, well, why is that? I think maybe it's like because you can't really protect thoughts because thoughts just change. They can change.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty quickly. But then
that's true.
But then people are building identities on thoughts too. So it's like why are those thoughts like protected, but then now like political thoughts are protected? I don't know.
But in the U.S., in the common culture of the U.S., there was also always this perspective that in like, especially in things like public offices, if your party affiliation was not something that should be grounds for firing someone, right? So it's a very, that was just kind of an understood thing that if you were in the military, if you were in, the Bureau of the ATF, or if you were in the people that put out that give you your driver's license or whatever, then none of that, you weren't supposed to be political during your job. You weren't supposed to discriminate against anyone politically in your job, but in exchange, whatever your private politics were shouldn't matter, right? And it was the same thing in academia, but now this has gone out the window because of the SJWs.
Yeah, so I don't even know what the solution is. Actually, I have a funny story about here on the island. So right down the hill from me, there's like people painted BLM on the street, and then they also put Black Lives Matter like on the main street, and I think that was probably like they went to the city council to get that set up. But the BLM near my street, down the street from me, I don't think it was just some kids or whatever, some people that did it. And the other night I was turning around and I saw a bunch of teenagers like go off into the woods. And then I drove down the hill and the B and the BLM had been painted blue. So I'm pretty sure it was these teenage kids that were there because I didn't see them carrying paint, but it was just odd for them to be coming out at that time and having the bright blue B there. But this morning when I went out to go pick up my bike that was at the shop, someone had already came back and painted white over the blue.
Well, you're very right as a fellow boomer that we've spent our lives having to deal with all the.
What are you talking about?
Sorry, as a fellow, I meant to say as a fellow Gen Xer.
Okay.
We've spent all of our lives having to deal with crap from the boomers, and now we have to deal with crap from the millennials. Right? We're stuck between two of the worst generations in modern history. But I still have a lot of hope for the Zoomers, for the next generation after the millennials. I think that there's going to be a ton of them who only ever grew up where, the people because when we were kids, the people in power were these kind of socially conservative shitheads, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah,
we had
exactly.
reasons to hate them, even though we might not have liked everything that the hippies did. We kind of understood, you know, where they were coming from, because there were still some of these people around. But the Zoomers, they've grown up. Everybody who's been in power over them their entire lives have been, you know, leftists and radical feminists and, all of these guys, these socialists, who have been constantly, instead of, you know, telling them, oh, you can't play D&D because it's demonic, or you can't listen to rock music because, you shouldn't smoke marijuana because it's blah, 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 right? And instead of doing that, they're telling them, well, you know, if you're a boy, then there's something fundamentally wrong with you, or, you know, you have to learn about racial diversity training to be able to go to school, you know, and stuff like this. And so they're going to rebel. Every generation rebels against, you know, the authority figures that they perceive governing them, right?
It used to be like that, but you know, I mean, a lot of these kids, like, they don't even get driver's licenses anymore. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, I see it in my own kids. My kids want to hang out with me way more than I ever would want to hang out with my parents. You know, so it's kind of, there is some cause for hope, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like, you know, every single one of my kids, we were driving the other day and we were listening to NWA, and I started singing along. They're like, you can't say that word. You can't say that word. I was like, what? That's not the N word. They're like, yes, that's the N word. I don't want to say it, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, if you would sing along to NWA, and I was like, how can you buy a record and you can't even sing the lyrics to the record? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, get out of here. But they don't see it that way, man. They're very hardcore. Oh.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, I guess.
You never sang along to NWA?
No, I'm more of a punk guy myself, so I never did sing along.
I'm a punk guy too. I guess I was hardcore, really. How old are you anyway?
That's not public knowledge.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 40. I don't know, 47. So I was totally in like the American hardcore scene, and
yeah, I'm right around your age. So
okay, yeah,
we had all the same experiences basically.
Yeah. So, you know, it was like, I don't know, American hardcore, and I don't know. Yeah, you know, actually, I was thinking about the other day too. I was listening to the Dead Kennedys, and when I was younger, I would like listen to the lyrics, and I was like, why is y'all be after like talking about like the far left as being like, you know, the people that are, you know, like California Uberallas and Governor Jerry Brown and all that stuff. I was like, that's the right, you know, those are the right wing that's doing it. I mean, they do plenty of songs against right wingers and Bible thumpers and stuff, but now, you know, now that I'm older, I totally understand it. I was like, oh, okay. Because he was reacting to, you know, like kind of like far left, well, communism and stuff back.
Well, anyway, I guess we're gonna have to see how things turn out. I want to choose to have hope. Like, you know, generational conflict tends to be, you know, one in, one out, right? So I've got a lot more sympathy with the lost generation than with the boomers, and I'm expecting that the Zoomers are going to have a lot more sympathy for the Gen Xers than the millennials. So.
Oh yeah, I mean most of their parents are going to be like the Gen X. But yeah,
and I think that influence will show.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're reacting to the same polls I've seen where they're like, oh, Zoomers are, you know, based and stuff, and I mean, I've seen it a little bit, but you know, they have a lot of strange ideas, or not strange ideas, but they have pretty far left wing ideas. At least my kids and the teenagers that I know and stuff and talk to.
Of course, your kids grew up in communist Seattle, right? So like,
they grew up in communist, mostly in San Diego, which is actually San Diego is actually pretty conservative compared to here. But yeah, Seattle is.
Oh yeah, well, San Diego compared to Seattle is, you know, having been to both cities, you know, San Diego is practically, I don't even know what to call it, but it's like, you know, hardcore Republican country compared to Seattle.
Yeah, it definitely is. 'Cause there's a lot of military stuff there. I used to work on the like North Island down there and stuff.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think they obviously Zoomers are facing right now, I guess 18 years, 20 years of massive indoctrination.
Yeah.
Right. But I've seen a lot of signs. There are a lot of Zoomers out there that are, taking the red pill and realizing that, they're targets too for the wokesters. So.
Yeah. I mean, I really do. I mean, I've got I've got 3 of my own, 2 of my wife's kids, but, I really think a lot of this indoctrination stuff is like starting in elementary school, and has been for years. Like, it's terrible. Like I got actually a argument with my oldest stepson's teacher. They sent a thing out and they said, hey, we're not going to have a Father's Day activity this year. Just want you to know. And I wrote back and I was like, you guys had a Mother's Day, why aren't you going to have a Father's Day? And the woman wrote back and she's like, I went to the training in Chicago and for diversity, and one of the girls in class has 2 mothers, so I don't feel comfortable having a Father's Day activity. And I was like, well, that's not good. I mean, if you did the same thing for Mother's Day, that would be fine. But basically what you're teaching my stepson is that he's less than, that men are less than women, or fathers are less than mothers or something, and they're not worth being celebrated.
Yeah.
So they ended up reinstating it, but then they said it could be optional. I was fighting for this kid's dad. I don't even fucking like his dad, but so I fought for the right for his kid to make him a Father's Day thing. And then he came home that day and I was like, so did you make a Father's Day thing? And he's like, yeah, it was optional, so I didn't do it. All right. I tried.
Yeah.
And then I wrote to the principal too, and they're like, well, we're going to do a caregiver's day next year because another kid only has a grandmother. And I was like,
well, this is one of the fundamental things that is going to have to be changed if you're going to see the end of this kind of wokeism, right? Like if there is a big pushback in the next 10 years, you're going to, I think that one of the things that's going to have to happen is that I can't understand why you have Republicans right now that are arguing that, you have to get kids back into school after the lockdowns and everything like that. The schools are horrible, right? You need to abolish the entire education system as it exists right now, right? Like from kindergarten to post-grad studies, every part of it is just leftist indoctrination. So why, if you're a Republican, are you arguing to send your kids back to be indoctrinated to hate you more, right? Like what you need to do is, if you're going to take back the country, you need to fire every single teacher, get rid of the entire public education system as it works, and replace it with a kind of voucher-based system of charter schools and homeschooling pods, where then if you want to have, like, if somebody wants to make an ultra left-wing charter school to send their because they're ultra left-wing, they want to send their kids to learn ultra left-wing things, they can use the voucher for that. And if somebody wants to use their voucher to send their kid to a religious school, then you can do that. If you want to send them to, I don't know, libertarian atheist school, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to see a completely different way of functioning, because a bunch of, you won't have generations like we now have, basically 3 generations. It happened since from the time we were in school until right to this day, that has been ever increasing leftist indoctrination as part of the school's policies, right? So this needs to be fundamentally changed.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, the other thing that happened last year too, before this whole COVID thing, is they canceled Halloween because they said that for inclusivity reasons, because some kids couldn't afford Halloween costumes. I was like, that's bullshit. I had a single mom that, like, on food stamps when I was a kid, and I would just put a fucking sheet on or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I was
I was thinking,
participated. I want the
how much does it cost
free
to
candy.
take
Any
an old
kid,
sheet and put 2 iPhones?
yeah. So I don't know. This shit's ridiculous, man. And but I do. I mean, I do kind of agree with you that maybe we should just nuke the school system because, you know, I don't know. If they're pushing, I don't want them pushing any politics in school. You know, I want them
No,
just give the kids, teach them how to read and write and do arithmetic, and like, you know, I don't need the 1619 project like pushed on my kids or any of that shit. Like,
exactly.
go away.
Yeah, you got to get your kids out of your schools, and then you have to just destroy the university system, right? Because it's, frankly, we're using a 700-year-old system for advanced education, and it just doesn't work anymore, right? It's just ridiculous, and that can be totally redefined into a much better system for advanced education that won't be controlled by the extreme communist left, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't
Anyway,
know.
I think
I can't get in my kids' interest in anything other than they want to be YouTubers when they grow up. I'm like, and they're all embarrassed that I'm on a YouTube channel. They're like, oh my God, no. Don't let anybody know.
It's working really well for me. So you know, I've become a very successful YouTuber. So I'm quite happy with it. Speaking of which, guys, as we're closing up now, don't forget to check out my channel, The RPG Pundit, and subscribe there. And well, Venger was pimping his stuff, and so I guess I should say my latest product that's out right now is RPG Pundit Presents number 102, which is a very cheap 99-cent product. It's a brand new character class for Lion and Dragon, the Woodsman. But and so if you're a Lion and Dragon fan, you should pick that up. It's a new class. And if you're not a Lion and Dragon player, well, you could still probably use it in your OSR games. But there's also 101 other RPG Pundit Presents issues out there. Buy them all, or at least buy all the ones that look cool to you, because they're all inexpensive. It's a good way to support me, and you get some stuff back. Check out my other games, Lion and Dragon, you know, my bigger games, Lion and Dragon, Dark Albion, Arrows of Indra, the Old School Companion. And keep an eye out on, well, I mean, it's going to be a long time still, but I'm working right now on my new game, which I revealed recently on YouTube. Is going to be a occult modern OSR game where you play magical agents in a secret war going on behind the scenes of society between different occult conspiracies. It's going to be a very cool game. I'm currently in the process of looking for someone to do the publishing side of it. I've gotten a few very interesting proposals so far, but I'm still open to get more. So if any of you guys are doing RPG publishing or have experience in you know, the editing, layout, art, etc., covers, everything that I don't want to do, I just want to write it, then get in touch and maybe we can see about making a deal. So I guess that's it for my stuff.
Well, I got nothing to promote, but here, I'll show you some of the stuff I'm working on, though. This is my Brutal Blade. This is like just the playtest packet for Brutal Blades that I've been working on. Ooh. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
I got some of the art done. But here's some of the class stuff. Here's my warrior.
Oh, yeah.
You can see that or not, but
warrior,
and here's my my wizard, which might become my warlock. I think I'm gonna get different art for this, but it's all like super brutal, gory, like death metal, D&D, basically.
Okay, right.
That's
cool.
That's what I'm working on. I've been working on it for a while, and then my my magic book that I think you know a little bit about it, Pundit, but it's still being, the layout's done. It's the arts. I'm working with the artist. I got a meeting with them tomorrow. I have like a weekly meeting. So that's going to come out under Lamentations. I hope this year, but probably early next year, actually. We'll see how it goes.
Well, good stuff. We hope to see it actually on sale at some point soon.
Yeah, definitely. OSR Fanatic said who did the art. A bunch of people did the art so far. So those two big, not the cover, but the two interior, the warrior and the wizard are Matt Sticker, if you know who that is. Stikker. Shit's really good. I think it's sticker.bigcartel.com or something. Anyway, we should play your occult game. We should do like a live stream and play a few sessions of your occult game if you want some play testing or something.
I don't do live stream gaming.
Oh, you don't?
In fact, yeah. Before you were in the cast, I don't know if you watched these episodes, but there were a couple of episodes where Venger ran Chalt.
Yeah, I saw it. I just didn't watch it. Was it a disaster?
Yeah, it was him, Grim Jim, and another guy, and they were playing, and I refused to participate, so I was just chatting and really, roasting them as they went along.
Okay, all right, well.
But I will be revealing more stuff about my game as we go along. I think it's going to be a pretty good RPG. Obviously, it's going to be magical, authentic in the sense of it's going to have a bunch of stuff about modern magic the way modern magicians see it. So it should be exciting. Obviously, every modern magician is going to say I'm doing it wrong, but there we are.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks for listening, folks.
Yeah, I guess that's it for today, guys. Check us out, share us, and buy my stuff. Thank you very much to everyone who watched. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, I guess.
2 weeks. See ya.